End of year excitements. If you're like me, you can't wait until the weather finally cools off enough to wear your favorite sweaters all day. And if you're like Matt, you're dreading the next 3 to 5 months, depending on where you live. Nonetheless, it's the best time to recap the past 12 months that was, for many reasons. But on this show, the last year in sports, we are back again with our favorite sports stories from the past year. This is what you don't know about sports in 2022. Welcome to What You Don't Know About Sports, where we delve into the forgotten stories, teams, and athletes of sports history and question widely held takes on today's sports. I'm Blake, and this is Matt.
Howdy, and it's very cold outside.
It was chilly today. And today we want to talk to you about the year that was 2022 and the sports stories that we thought you should either remember or maybe hear for the first time here. You'll thank us for this later. Matt, speaking of the weather outside, have you gotten to wear your favorite sweater yet this year? Or are you still holding on to it?
If we're being honest, I was putting on my favorite sweater in October, maybe September, when it was 80 degrees by day and 60 to high 50s by night. I was already in sweater weather. So yeah, We've long been into it. At least this time of year is festive, and there's things to look forward to. You know, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. This isn't the bad part. It's January and February when it's still cold and dreary and miserable. That sucks.
I feel like March is always, where we live at least, where we get like that random ice storm for no good reason. We just we don't get snow here. Most of the time in North Carolina, we just get it'll rain one day, the temperature will just barely drop below freezing, and then there's icicles on all the trees and black ice all over the roads, and stuff gets closed until the sun comes up and melts it enough for us to drive on without killing each other. It's a great time. It would be much better if it were snow, because we could drive on snow. Snow gives you plenty of traction, really.
That's right.
Ice, nah.
All those Yankees come down here and say, you can't drive on snow. And it's like, actually, we can't drive on ice. And
neither can you.
For the record. So how about you take your elitism and shove it? Just kidding. We love all the transplants to our lovely state. Love it.
Makes our house prices go up.
Ain't that the truth?
Woo, anyway. So we've got two stories. We each picked one, same as the prior year, that we think we just want to remind everyone about. Either you heard it and it was a very quick passerby sort of situation, and you don't really understand the significance of it, or maybe this is the first time you're going to be hearing these, and you will thank us for that later. Do you want to go first? Do you want me?
Yeah, I can go first. I have one that I think is perfect for, like, in 15 years, if we're still doing the podcast, this would be the beginnings of a perfect story that we would cover. So I think it's going to be great. It's a late breaking story. Before we get into it, I have a gift for you in this holiday season.
Love Christmas.
It is the gift of trivia.
Yeah.
Early trivia. We're blitzing right here at the beginning.
Blitzing. Like the reindeer. Anyway.
Don't ask where the Donner got his name from. So the New Mexico State University has a basketball team, as many do. The story is going to be related to them. Your trivia question, can you name, there are only like two. Not a very proud tradition down there in New Mexico State, although they have had some bright spots. Two that I could find. All-Stars from the National Basketball Association. Can you name the most recent All-Star to come out of New Mexico State University?
No.
I think you can.
I don't think so. Not right now. Okay. Questions, yeah.
Yes, you
I'm
get
gonna
questions.
have to
for this.
ask questions or this is over.
Yes.
When did they join the NBA?
Their first NBA season was 2016-17.
Like a recent NBA All-Star.
Very recent NBA All-Star, yeah. When I say New
Very
Mexico
recent.
State has had bright spots, one of them is the last decade or so. And
Right. Ooh, who does or has this person played for?
this person has played for and does play for, only has played for, the NBA's Toronto Raptors.
Okay, 2016 to present. What year were they an All-Star?
They were an All-Star in the 1920 season.
Holy 1920?
Yep. Well, the 2019-20, not the 1920 NBA season, because that doesn't exist.
That's impressive. Okay, so played the All-Star game in 2020.
2020, yes.
Drafted in 16. No way. Okay, the first person I thought of was not drafted. That was Van Vliet, and then now that I'm thinking about it, he did not go to New Mexico State, so that's out.
He went to Wichita State for him.
Yeah, state, close enough. What position?
Power forward, although this year he's listed as center.
Big guy. Oh, Siakam. Pascal Siakam.
That is correct. One of the best names in the NBA ever. Pascal Siakam. Is
who's the other? The other All-Star?
Sam Lacey from New Mexico State actually has played the most games in the NBA of any player at 1,000, which is actually pretty dope. They have one other player who's had their jersey retired in the NBA, John Williamson, who played for the Nets. So, I know I'm ringing a lot of bells.
Siakam.
A lot of people
That's
on
it.
those names. Pascal Siakam, who I did not realize was like second team All NBA that same season and has also been a third team All NBA player.
Didn't the Raptors win in 2020?
Yes, which makes sense for him
Siakam,
being all those things. Yeah, but like I was not prepared for Pascal Siakam to be one of the top 10 to 15 players in an NBA season, but here we are.
Here we are. That is true. They played in. They finished the year in the bubble, right? That
2020
Raptors,
season. Yeah, that 2020 season. Yeah, they didn't win in 2020.
The Raptors didn't. Yeah, that was the Lakers in the bubble. So
yeah, that is the Mickey Mouse title, as they call it.
the Mickey Mouse title. Wide World of Sports for the win.
Yes. Okay. So our story deals with the New Mexico State University Aggies, and it begins, oddly enough, during football season in a game between themselves and the New Mexico Lobos, their in-state rivalry. You know, the storied New Mexico State-New Mexico rivalry.
Yeah, everyone knows.
Yes. New Mexico State basketball player Mike Peake got into a fight at or around that football game with some New Mexico students. That was not the end of their altercation, however, as ahead of the basketball game between the two schools that was going to be played at New Mexico's campus, the students who he had the altercation with conspired, if you will, to have one of their female friends lure Peake to campus. The plan was to get him on campus, beat him up in revenge or retaliation. Obviously, we know that clearly means they lost the first fight. and weren't very good for
Revenge.
right. They lost the first fight, weren't happy with it, so they wanted to jump the guy because apparently that's the only way they could win. They carried out this plan pretty flawlessly until it got to the actual beating part. Peak did show up against everybody's common sense. You got in a fight with people from this campus. You talking to some strange girl. I get he's a college kid. Let's do better there. He was ambushed by the girl, so it wasn't a complete catfish situation. She was there, but so were the students he had previously fought with. One supposedly hit him with a baseball bat before a second student shot Peak in the leg. Peak had a gun of his own, shot back, and killed. Murder is a strong word. I'm sorry.
Same thing.
He fatally wounded the
Fatally
New
wounded.
Mexico student who was involved in the altercation. Everybody else fled the scene. Peak called 3 of his teammates who came and got him.
No, man.
In the situation.
Okay. Yeah, time out.
Yes.
In my professional experience,
Yes.
if you want to get caught,
Yes.
call someone right after it happens.
Yes.
Because that is exactly where that investigation is going to go. It's going to be eyewitnesses, then it's going to be cameras, and then we're going to look at your phones, and we're going to figure out who you called. And if there is a dead zone for just a few minutes, and then you frantically make a number of phone calls, that's a sign. That's called a clue, if you will. That's evidence, if you will. So if for all of you out there listening, don't take your phone with you to do the crime, for one thing. And 2, if you do take it, don't make 5 phone calls in 5 minutes right after it happened. Just put it down. Uber, walk it off. I mean, you got a gunshot wound, but like, try at least. I don't know. Sorry. That was my professional rant.
This is but the first of a plethora of clues that will be involved in this story. One thing we should keep in mind is that all of these students, all of these players, the New Mexico students didn't have a curfew, but all the members of the New Mexico State team were under curfew. Assistant coach Dominique Taylor was responsible for enforcing that curfew on this particular night. He was supposed to post up in the hotel lobby, make sure that nobody left. His testimony is that he saw the players hours before the shooting, all of them, and directed them to the hotel's elevators to go back to bed. Obviously, they didn't listen, or he wasn't paying attention because
he was sleeping in the lobby.
Peak left early enough to go and do what he did. The other 3 were able to leave and go retrieve Peak. So clearly no one is following curfew at this point. Now, after the altercation, like you said, eyewitnesses, then cameras, then you go from there. Camera footage wasn't great in this case. I know that's shocking. In a world where we have movie cameras on our cell phones, we still have things that are worse than the moon landing camera for security everywhere. And so not sure who's who until you go figure it all out. The police end up, based on eyewitness testimony, visiting the hotel that the New Mexico State University basketball team is staying. There they meet head coach
Whoa.
Greg Heyer, who first, this is where the story starts to go wild. So the first thing, some versions of this story say that Heyer denied knowing who Mike Peak was in the first place.
Okay, that's bad.
I'm not sure if he's one of my, I don't know. Like,
I do not know.
Like, I get it. You're going to lie to the police. You're going to obstruct. Although at that point, you may actually be obstructing because
that's a crime too.
That is easily provable that you do know, in fact, who one of the 15 people you're responsible for is. Like, this is not hard, dude. So I hope he didn't do that. But he did speak with police. He denied knowing that it had happened in that moment. He didn't know what was going on. He's not sure of the situation. He definitely doesn't know where the weapon is, or where Peak's phone is, or where Peak's tablet is. He doesn't know where any of these pieces of evidence are. The reason this is important is because the thing that the camera footage does show is that the people who picked up Peak also put 3 things into the trunk. 1, 2, 3. You can see it happen. They got the license plate off of that, and so they knew who they were looking for. He denied knowing anything. Then he stopped that discussion and said, first, I need to make sure that we can have this discussion. I need to call my athletic director. I need to find out if any of these dudes need lawyers. We got to get all this straight. Then I'll get back with you once we've got all that. I just give me a minute. Let me handle this. He does call the athletic director, who handles canceling the next day's basketball game. Obviously, that's just, you're not playing a basketball game after the 2 schools had an incident where shots were fired. That's you're not doing that. Like, there's no one who's going to be like, yeah, the game must go on. Actually, unless you're going to empty out the stands. No, we're not doing that. But once the game is canceled, Hire loads his players up on the bus and is going to go home. Now, Peak has gone to the hospital by this point, right? So we have the actual party involved. But everybody else is loading up on the bus, heading down the interstate, going back to school. Now,
they're just leaving.
They still have not. The police have not spoken to the 3 players who picked Peak up yet. Which, as you said, eyewitnesses, part of the process. Haven't talked to them. Haven't secured a lawyer. Don't know where that stands. Just give me a minute. Load it up. We're home. Okay. Realizing that they weren't where they needed to be, police started calling Hire. And it went to voicemail and voicemail and voicemail. They also called Dominique Taylor, who they had interviewed as well, because they knew he was responsible for the curfew situation. His phone went to voicemail and voicemail and voicemail and voicemail. So finally, they said, well, if they're not here, there's only one place they could be going. So they just turned their lights on, flew down the interstate until they found the bus, pulled it over at a rest stop. There they found the tablet that Hire was unaware of and the cell phone that he didn't know where it was. And quick inspection of the cell phone let them know that the one person, by the way, the one person not on the bus that Hire had already stated everyone in the party had traveled on, the one person not on the bus was Dominique Taylor. The one person who the cell phone indicated knew where the gun was Dominique Taylor. So they tracked down Dominique Taylor, who was still at the team hotel in the parking lot, and found the gun wrapped in a towel, where they then took over the gun. So there are a couple of problems here. Procedurally, number 1. Intellectually, number 2. And I also would like to advise on breaking the law for a moment. And I just want to point out, if you are on gun disposal duty, maybe don't stay at your last known whereabouts with the gun. That's the least anyone could ask of you if you're going to be on that. Like, if you're going to do that, I need you to be... Like, how many states could you travel to if you just go the wrong direction and nobody knows what car you're in? Like, how far could you go before anybody found you? It's also New Mexico. There's nothing there. There's desert. Just dump it.
Anywhere.
I'm gonna need my dude to be on the way to Yellowstone.
Yeah. No, I'm going to Mexico. Yeah, I'm throwing it over the wall
with some bottles to pee in, and don't stop until you don't have any more.
Yeah, basically. My question is, so the head coach who left an assistant coach behind to dispose of the murder weapon. This head coach also left the player responsible for the shooting in the city where the shooting took place in a hospital by himself. Just like, he ended up at the hospital, but he just got left there.
Best I can tell, yes, he was left to recover there.
That's terrible. Like first time you ask, you don't even know who he is. Then then you just pack the rest of the team up. I wonder if he just assumed that like no one like I bet he knew this guy. I wonder if he knew Peak might be something that he did not want to be responsible for, maybe. And he was like, "No, none of the other players on my team would have been involved in this. No way. We're just gonna leave him here. We're leaving. We're getting out of here." And unknowingly taking three accomplices on the team bus and leaving the coach behind to dispose of the weapon. Yet the coach did not dispose of the weapon. It was just wrapped in a pillowcase or a towel or something.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
You've my thing is, and I don't expect I don't expect all college basketball coaches to be well versed in criminal mastermindedry. I am aware that some of them may, um, especially older generations of coaches, perhaps. But like, maybe he just didn't know the story, right? Maybe this is a self defense shooting.
Yeah.
There there is no crime here. There is no need to not
Well,
like
there's a crime.
cooperate in this situation.
There's
There is
100%
a
a crime.
crime,
There are multiple assaults to be
but
dealt with. One of the assailants is dead, and one of the victims slash assailants is in the hospital. But you still have numerous people outstanding. They
yes.
were seemingly only investigating the homicide, not the assault that led to the self defense shooting.
So I could see that being I'm protecting my dude so that they don't, but at the same time, if he told you it was justified, I don't know. You made
That's
it a
weird,
thing
man.
though.
That's weird,
You
man.
made it a
Yeah,
thing.
you should like if just don't leave, don't flee the city. Like at that point, you're a wanted person, and you just don't do that. Just don't leave. I don't know. Well, and that's the other question: is did the head coach ever even get to talk to Peak, get to talk to the shooter? I wonder if like I
That's
mean
possible.
he ended
Yeah, but
back
he
up
didn't.
at the
Yeah.
hotel because the firearm ended up back at the hotel potentially. There's a lot. Like he said earlier. There's a lot to be uncovered because this did just recently happen. Like we're mid December. This did just recently happen as of this recording, and so it's possible that a lot of these questions will be answered very soon, or could be out there
Yeah.
in the interwebs somewhere right now. We just haven't been informed of all this, but there's a
Yeah.
lot to be left open, and this will not be the last time you hear of this story because
No. And
we got
and
some stuff to figure out.
yeah. Peak has been suspended indefinitely, but he's also recovering from his wound, so that is
Fair.
neither here nor there. The school and a third party are both investigating on the school front because it was a policy at New Mexico that you could not be involved in a fight, you couldn't have a weapon, you couldn't discharge a weapon, you couldn't do this, that, and the other. I'm assuming that's probably also a New Mexico State University policy, so there's some issues he's got in that situation internally. They're also investigating the coach's response to the situation,
Sure.
although none of them have been suspended. Reporters pressed higher on the situation to make him confirm that all of the coaches were attending the next road trip a few weeks later. And he did confirm that, yes, all of the coaches were going, which meant also Dominique Taylor.
Also, the
Hopefully
accessory.
he's not on. Hopefully he's not on curfew duty for the next road trip. But yeah, that is not a sporting story, but one that is related to sports that I thought was wild, and one that we would cover in the future because it is just
um,
so wacky.
yeah. Yeah, it's especially wacky in the present moment as we're recording because there's a lot that we don't know. But there will 100% be issues. There will 100% be criminal charges, sanctions against the team, maybe the school, the individuals, the coaches on either side potentially. I mean, there's no way they won't figure out who the female was who led him there to get beat up and then ended up leading to a shooting that led to a homicide. So there's there's still a lot to be uncovered here, and I'm sure they're working on it. So it will be interesting to hear going forward.
The moral to the story is that everybody's mom told them not to go messing with strange girls you don't know, and she was right.
Social media is tough, man. They look real good on the screen, and what's that? That graph that's all over social, the F around and find out meter.
He hit the peak of that one.
Go ahead. All right. So that was fun. I have my story is not about murder, but about one of the greatest coaches of our generation retiring after this most recent sports season for them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of lead up because I feel like if we're not talking about murder, I might lose you here. But you've been in about halfway through this episode and you're still here, so don't leave. What would you say if I told you that the greatest coach of all time just won their 10th national championship in 42 years? That should pique your interest, right?
It's pretty good.
What if I also said that from that team, the most successful player in that program's history just won their conference's player of the year for the fifth straight year? The first student athlete in any sport to earn the conference player of the year 5 times. That's impressive.
Now that's historic there.
That ain't never happening. Yeah, that may never happen again. And this person benefited from the COVID year, as did everybody. So she is not alone. But first, I have a trivia question to lead into this, okay?
I love
it. The topic of today, women's field hockey. Don't leave. I see you scrolling your podcast app. Don't leave. Women's field hockey. Hear me out. Women's field hockey has been a Division I sport for 42 years. Okay? 3 schools have won 27 of the 42 national titles. Here's your question, because you've got trivia too. Here's your question. Can you name the 3 Division I programs in women's field hockey to have won 27 of the 42 Division I women's field hockey national championships?
You bet I can.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, one is the University of North Carolina.
Yeah, you're aware of that.
Not the North Carolina State University, but the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
True.
Okay. All right.
I concede.
33% is not good, but I knew that one. All right. The other 2. Okay, but see, colleges, you can spam some easy questions here and make it simple. So let's make it more complicated though than it needs to be. What conference do these 2 schools come from?
See, that is very complicated. You're making this very hard. One of them plays
what state, because that would be easy.
Yeah, you could. One of them plays in the Sun Belt.
What?
And one of them plays in the Big Ten.
The Sun Belt thing has to be because every conference doesn't do field hockey. That's got to be what that is. They play all sports in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, I think so. No, okay. Like the major ones, yes. The major ones, yes.
Oh no, what are we doing here?
Like basketball, baseball, football, golf, soccer, swimming and diving, tennis, and volleyball. Actually, wait. This is saying that the most current they play in the Big East. Maybe that's it.
But that wouldn't be. That'd be harder. What you just did there,
potentially.
Sunbelt Big East team. What? Okay, So the Big Ten team. What state are they from?
Maryland.
Hey, first of all,
you asked. I gotta answer the question.
Well, I'm not saying their name because that place, that's a bad word.
You asked the question,
and we say that it's not explicit content on this episode.
I apologize for the young ears that had to hear that.
It's the University of Maryland.
Yeah, that's number 2. Here's the good one.
May their traitorous souls rest is a big team.
If you ask what state this one's in, it won't give it away immediately, by the way.
Okay. Dang, I hate Maryland so much. Not the state or the people, just the school. So what state is the Sun Belt from? The other school?
Virginia.
Somebody in Virginia that's not Virginia or Virginia Tech has won a bunch of field hockey championships?
Oh, yes. Like second most all time.
Oh, no, I do know this because when I was looking up one of your subjects like records, I found that this school, I think it's this school in Virginia, had the not just the all-time leading scorer, but the second all-time leading scorer, I think. White and purple, maybe?
Not purple, not that I can see.
White and blue. What are those colors?
Blue, white, gray. 2 different shades of blue, to be exact.
Old Dominion?
Yeah.
Old Dominion. Yeah.
The Old Dominion Monarchs.
Very cool. Would not have expected that. I mean, obviously I saw it and didn't even think of it, but
I'm sure the conferences have changed over time again because women's field hockey, there's probably not that many. It's a very regional sport. Actually, the farthest west team to ever win a national championship in women's field hockey is Iowa. Farthest south is North Carolina. Everyone else is up and to the right. So
feels like
very
a
regional
situation, like a saying.
Yeah. Very regional. So, as you stated, the program with the most women's field hockey national championships is North Carolina. The head coach of that team in its entire existence since 1981 is a woman named Karen Shelton. She was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. She spent the first 10 years of her life on army bases around the United States because her father was in the military. After he retired from the army, the family moved to Pennsylvania, which is a hotbed for actually multiple sports. Field hockey is one. They're not bad at lacrosse, and they have some pretty good soccer players up there also. Karen Shelton played field hockey for Westchester State University in Pennsylvania. She won the Honda Award, which is the nation's best field hockey player, 3 straight years as a collegiate player. 3 straight years, which has never been matched. This was in the 70s. In the late 70s, won all 3 back to back to back. She won 3 national championships in field hockey, and she won 1 as a member of their women's lacrosse team. So she's, just all over everything.
Yeah, 2 sport
national championship.
I guess that's similar skill sets too, but not quite.
Similar, but not really.
Yeah, not at all. I guess the spacing maybe would be a little bit the same, but the ball moves faster in field hockey than it does in lacrosse than it does in field hockey. I don't know. That's cool.
Very, very interesting, right? She also played for the United States women's field hockey national team from 1977 to 1984. As a part of that team, she won a bronze medal at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. And she was named the U.S. Women's Field Hockey Athlete of the Year in 1983. So just based on her playing career alone, she is an all-time great in the world of women's field hockey. We haven't even gotten to her coaching career yet. She became the field hockey coach at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1981, the first year that women's field hockey was a Division I program. And she was a part-time employee. Her primary job was still a member of the national team. And she coached the UNC women's field hockey team on a part-time basis while she played. She led UNC to their first national title in 1989. Only then did she become a full-time employee of the school. And I would say making her a full-time coach turned out pretty good. In her 42 years, UNC won 10 national championships and finished runner-up, second place in the country 11 times. 21 out of her 42 years she played in the national championship game in women's field hockey. They won the regular season ACC title 21 times. They won the ACC tournament title 25 times. And of her 42 seasons, she had a winning record in 40 of them. Wow, indeed. She is 8-time National Coach of the Year. She leads all coaches in NCAA tournament appearances, games played, and wins. During her tenure at North Carolina, they had 2 different three-peats, 95 to 97 and 2018 to 2020. We'll get to the 2020 thing in a minute. 14 of her last 16 seasons, the team played in the national Final Four. They made it to the last 4 teams remaining. 14 of the last 16. She was named to the National Field Hockey Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2008 and the United States of America Field Hockey Hall of Fame in 1989 as a player. And from her hometown, she was named the Delaware County Field Hockey Athlete of the Millennium.
There you go.
That I don't think you could have a better title than that from a newspaper in Pennsylvania. That is up there with just incredible, playing career separate, just becoming a coach and doing that well for that long. Like that just doesn't happen. That no matter the sport. And now you can say whatever you want about the competitiveness of women's field hockey and it's only 40 something years old. It's still ridiculous no matter what level you do it at.
Yeah, the thing, and we talked about this on a recent episode where I brought up the maturity of the sport or whatever. But it's impressive to be the one that does it's easier to rack up all of those things because of how young the sport is, but everybody had that same opportunity to be that one, and she is the one that did it. So that's always the impressive part. Like it's not less impressive because there's a less competitive field every year. Like there will be coaches that you look back and it's a Cy Young situation, right? We can't judge them to her because she had a weaker playing field. You hope all sports grow, so eventually it'd be a more competitive playing field, but it doesn't diminish her achievements at all because that is next level. I mean, she should be mentioned in the same breath as other successful coaches in all sports, women and men alike, because those are some impressive stats. And UNC especially in women's sports, had a reputation for being the first one in on a lot of them. Their women's soccer program is fantastic. They've been pretty regularly good at women's basketball, I believe. Obviously, field hockey is a thing. So shout out to them for doing that, looking out and trying to succeed in those areas. Because every school didn't, just because it was offered as a Division I sport, they didn't jump in. That is impressive, the run. I like that.
Speaking of runs, and you mentioned UNC women's soccer, I looked this up too, because of course, when you talk about like dominant women's collegiate programs, and especially at North Carolina, you think of their soccer program first, probably, especially with women's sports. And they have 21 national championships. Now, their first one was in 1982. So they won their first national championship at about the same time, except Anson Dorrance is in like his 90th season there, of course. He's still going. The first women's soccer head coach when it became a Division I program, and late 70s, early 80s. And he's won 21 and coached some of the greatest United States women's soccer players ever.
Yeah, period.
It's so, it's like, just like you said, and I think what we were talking about at the time was John Wooden at UCLA. We were doing the Blue Bloods episode.
Yeah.
We were talking about how, like, he won 11 out of 12 or 10 out of whatever it was. And it's like, does that diminish? Like, is he still, is that program still a blue blood school? And it's like, well, maybe, depends on the way you look at it. I think overwhelming majority would say yes, but you can't take away from what John Wooden did in the '60s just because there was a lack of competition at the time. Like, it's still hard to do that well, regardless.
Yeah, yeah, and for Shelton to be that good for that long, it's got to have something, because we've seen in other sports coaches have good runs, but eventually their good runs turn into other coaches. Your assistants leave, your players grow up and coach. Somebody takes that mantle from you. So just the sheer length, just like Ant's endurance, the longevity here to do it for 40 years, the only coach this program's ever had, and still be successful. You're still getting recruits. You're still building relationships. You're still able to do those things you were doing 40 years ago. That, for me, is where it's impressive as well, because this isn't a 10-year run where you were great for 10 years and then you held on for another 30. I'm thinking of somebody like an Augie Garrido in baseball that had a lot of success in the early days of big time college baseball, and then was just a coach for like 60 years, and he was at Texas, and so it was good, but it was never as good as at the beginning. All right,
Yeah,
and so for her to be that successful. Texas is back. We just had to
see,
for her to be that successful. I knew you were laughing when I said Augie Garrido, and I couldn't figure out
Texas,
why.
I was like, oh, here
and
it
then
comes.
I was like, here we are. And so, yeah, for her to have the longevity of it also is another factor for me. That being one of the greatest coaches. I mean, let's get her to write some books and pass them around.
Whew.
Because she's got some stories and some ideas and some things to share.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, again, UNC women's soccer is the same way. It's tough to stay at the peak of anything you do. Doesn't have to be sports related. To stay at the peak of what you do and remain competitive until the time that you want to give it up. You're not fired. You're not forced out. What did Deion Sanders just say recently? He told his kids at Jackson State before he left for Colorado, he said something like, there's only two ways out. Like, you leave or you get fired. It's like you leave on your own. It's like, and this is that was his time or whatever. She did it as well as anybody could have done it for as long as she wanted to do it. Like, she could stay. Their stadium is named after her. She's the only I think she's the only women's coach in collegiate sports that has a stadium that she coached in named after her. So she could have stayed. Speaking of that longevity, she didn't just like ride off into the sunset, because remember when I told you the most successful player in that program's history just won her 5th consecutive ACC Conference Player of the Year award? That would be Erin Matson. She's an all-star in her own right. Could have been anywhere, but she decided to come to Chapel Hill. She grew up in Pennsylvania. There's a hint. She apparently has played field hockey since she was 6 years old. Graduated from high school in 2018 and came to North Carolina to play. She's actually tied for the youngest woman ever to play for the U.S. women's national field hockey team. She joined the team at 16 years old and led them to both gold medals at the 2017 Pan American Cup and the 2019 Pan American Games. Already said she's won 5 ACC Player of the Year awards. Only athlete, regardless of sport, man or woman, to ever do that. All-American all 5 years. UNC's record during her 5 years at the school, 99-8. They lost 7 games during the 2021 season, still made it to the national championship game, finished runner-up. The other 4 years she was there, they won the national title. And 2 of those 5 years, she won the Honda Award for the nation's top collegiate player, back-to-back years. So no one has matched Shelton winning it 3 times, but Madsen has 2. She she dominated that sport like unlike anybody else who was. I mean, maybe you could probably think of a few, but no one's ever won Conference Player of the Year every year that they played. Soccer, women's soccer, maybe for this school specifically, and there may be a few other examples of just utter dominance by a single individual. But between the coach and her, I mean, what else? What else could you have asked for, really?
Yeah. I mean, so I get some of the criticism against Matson or some of her career totals and the fact that she got 5 years because of the COVID year. But every athlete that was her contemporary got that 5th year, and there are still athletes to come that are going to finish up after her that are going to be beneficiaries of that 5th year too. So I get it, but she is the best of this generation. And some of those things, whether you want to take the first 4 years or the second 4 years or her four worst years, the ACC is like a proud conference in women's field hockey. This isn't like a North Carolina or a bust situation. Those red wearing people from the North. I just do a weird Michigan Ohio State reference to Maryland. The Turtles, if you will, were in the ACC for a bunch of their championship wins. Wake Forest has 3 national championships in a row, and they beat Duke in 2 of them, who have like 4 or 5 runner-ups. Like, the ACC is good at women's field hockey. For her to be first team All ACC every year she played, the offensive player of the year every year she played, that is the equivalent of Ralph Sampson being first team All ACC 4 times, or Tim Duncan being first team All ACC 4 times, except they weren't.
Facts.
Like, they are the ACC is that good at this sport and has a storied history. She is the first one to do it. She is one of the greatest athletes in the conference's history, period. Again, male or female, she is. And has to be challenging for near the top spot in the greatest female or male athlete, period, but definitely near the top of female athletes in the conference's history. Those accolades are nothing to be sneezed at. Like, that is impressive.
It is impressive. And like you said, the ACC isn't going anywhere. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen to the North Carolina program, but I can only imagine they can only fall so far after all this. At least I hope so. To be fair, Old Dominion has 9 national championships between 1982 and the year 2000, and they have not won another one. Maryland with 8 won theirs between 87 and 2011. Have not won one in 10 years. Over the last 10 years, though, Northwestern won their first one, Delaware won their first one, Syracuse won their first one, and Princeton won in 2012. So I guess 11 years ago that would have counted. But Connecticut, UConn has 3 in the last decade. So I mean, it was heavily dominated in the 80s between, actually UConn was good in the 80s, Maryland won one in the 80s, and then Old Dominion, North Carolina. And then, but 3 new schools in the last 10 years have won national championships in that sport. So it's only going to get more competitive. But
that's it. That's one of the signs of maturation is new champions bouncing in and out. Shows how more competitive it is. But man, shout out to her.
It's
by the way, she's the leading scorer on the active Team USA. She's the leading scorer there too, as we speak.
So worldwide, we're talking worldwide, like
Teams USA's.
Yeah, we're talking about like playing other countries' best teams. Which, to be honest, I don't know how competitive worldwide women's field hockey is.
Well, we're not very good at it. So,
but right, but she is arguably the best player on that team, and she's been in
100%. High
school or college for the last 8 years. So
yeah, she's still
got
young.
room to keep playing. Right, she would be 23 probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you look up the list of top 10 goal scorers internationally, period, 10th place has 60. Matson is near 30, and the list is full of women in their 30s.
Yeah,
So
plenty of room to go.
she's got room to be an all-time great
Yeah,
internationally as well.
100%. So that is my sports story that you needed to hear for the first time, or you need to remember. And it's not just because I'm a homer, because Matt almost talked about it too. I kind of stole it from him.
Which I'm glad, because if you'd have made me talk about Carolina anymore in a positive light, and also had to say all that stuff about Maryland, this would have not
you, you would
gone
have picked a
well.
different. You probably would have picked a different trivia question. You would not have wanted to give Maryland that satisfaction, and that's okay. But
Yeah,
but yeah.
man.
So that's what we want you to remember from the 2022 sports year. There was tons of great stuff. I want to know though, before we go, we're close to the end. I want to know, is there something in particular that you were looking most forward to for next year, for the year 2023 in sports? Is there something on the horizon that you can think of? We did not plan this. Is there something
No,
you can see coming, or that you are the most excited for the next year? Judges coming back for y'all, for y'all Yankees.
I
Um,
think I do think I was gonna go baseball, which I guess not a
see,
shocker. I think in general, the 2023 baseball season will be one of the most competitive. And I don't know what shape it'll take. I don't know if it's going to be a bunch of teams close together fighting for playoff spots, or if there's going to be a very clear and obvious set of teams who are World Series contenders that you just, especially now with the way the schedules change, there are more matchups across divisions and across leagues than traditionally been. I think it's going to be an interesting baseball season, top to bottom. The shift is gone, so more balls in play with people actually moving and running. Left-handed hitters can just hit the ball now instead of having to do weird things. And the pitch clock makes games faster. I think baseball is going to have an exciting year. That's what I'm most looking forward to.
I can see all the money, all the players that have been getting paid. I can see, I think, your second option where there is a distinct set of teams at the top that's going to be just significantly better than everybody else. And then there's just going to be a big gap. There's going to be some people getting into the playoffs who are like, meh, what, like under 500. But then they're going to have to play the team that's like that potentially wins 110 games. Like it
But
could be that wide.
but I also think that some of the teams that spent may have spent wrongly. Like I think somebody out there is going to have picked up some guys that are going to benefit from the fact that the shift is gone that people hadn't really thought about necessarily. Like this has opened up another way just for this 1 year before everybody gets their heads wrapped around it. This has opened up another way to build a team. So I wonder if some team doesn't sneak in. Like the
Just
year the
get a bunch of.
Giants, yeah,
Go ahead.
nobody was signing old players, and then the Giants had like just hoarded all these 33-year-old people and were like, we're going to win now. Like, I think there is room for a surprise or two that we wouldn't think about.
Well, the Phillies were a surprise this year. They did not have a great regular season and made it to the World Series. I don't know that they could do that again.
No,
But
no.
I'm imagining a couple teams signing a few Ichiros who're just gonna slap the ball in the gaps. Like they're that accurate. They don't have to hit home run. They just get on base, man. That's
Ball up the middle from a left-handed hitter is a hit now,
yeah,
and
just
that's
every
a
time.
beautiful thing to watch.
So it will be interesting to see how that affects like runs scored, hits. Will that affect strikeouts? Because maybe you don't need to swing to hit it over the fence anymore because you're more likely to get a single without doing that. You're more likely to score and be productive without jacking it. Maybe that's an unintended consequence of the shift was the home run and strikeout
Oh,
issue.
oh, for sure.
I just thought about this.
Anthony Rizzo goes from being a 230, 240 hitter to being 270, 280, maybe close to 300.
They don't have to
Just
jack
from,
him anymore. Yeah.
yeah, balls land in the outfield safely instead of in the short fielders club.
That that was interesting. Just coming to that conclusion live on air here. Anyway,
Here we go. Yeah.
I think fresh off of Argentina and Lionel Messi's World Cup win, I am most excited and I'm anticipating the Women's World Cup in the summertime, just like 7 months away, because what I'm interested to see after we just gassed United States women's soccer and the program that that gave the United States women's national team so many of their greats in its past. They're not looking as good today as they were 4 years ago, and it's a little nerve-wracking to me because I take pride in them being so good and so dominant, and it's a little worrisome. I don't know that they can do it the way that they were playing, at least playing recently. I don't know. They're not as dominant as they have been in the past, and it worries me.
Yeah, I can see them struggling, but that makes for a more entertaining tournament. Part of the excitement is, being invested and not knowing what the outcome will be. And sometimes women's national team matches are, you suspend disbelief to get excited for them because you kind of know what the outcome is going to be. Hopefully it's still a good one though.
I think as a worldwide competition, it'll be good. I could foresee a scenario in which the outcome for the U.S. is not the same as previous World Cups, recent World Cups have been, and that's sad because I hate to call it like end of an era kind of thing. I don't think it's that. It's just the team they have a new coach from 4 years ago. They're just not playing the same. They're struggling. They're struggling against teams that they probably wouldn't have struggled with in the past. And so it is a little nerve-wracking, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Ooh, I do have one more that I just thought about. The Big Ten's TV. I like sports media stuff. The Big Ten's TV contract starts new next year as well, because next year would be 23-24, right? So yeah, it starts next year. And so that it'll be the first year we get like a 12 o'clock game on Fox and a 3:30 game on CBS. So the SEC on CBS Music will be Big Ten on CBS Music, and and then a night game on NBC. I don't like super conferences, but it will be interesting to see how they share those rights and how they talk about it and what the pregame shows look like. Does game day still go to Big Ten schools? Do they still talk about Big Ten schools? Like that kind of thing. I'm interested in seeing. And more college basketball on network television, which is a plus for me.
Always a plus.
Even though it's Big Ten basketball, but I'm a fan of those networks showing some basketball. So.
Yeah. I'm a fan of any college basketball game. I'll sit and watch anybody play. So
yep.
I think that'll do it. I think we're out of time. So that is what you don't know about sports in 2022. Those are the two stories that we think you should definitely know about before going into the new year, because there are unresolved issues in both of them that both situations will have to figure out in the coming year. If you have any other ideas, I want to hear you guys' favorite 2022 sports things. There's stuff we didn't think of, I'm sure. So tell us those on social media. Hit us up. Give us your other episode ideas, whatever you want us to talk about. We'll love to do it for you. And that's what you don't know about sports in 2022. Until next time, see ya.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of What You Don't Know About Sports. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review, 5 stars only, and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. If you have a great sports story, we want to hear about it. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WYDKAS Podcast, and on our YouTube channel at What You Don't Know About Sports Podcast. All episodes are written, recorded, and edited by us. Stay tuned for the next episode.